Guys, Mark here at Shapiro Capital's flagship podcast studio, and I am here with none other than Sam Guzman from The Works Rent Ready Service. And if you're in the real estate space and you need to turn over a unit fast, Sam will crush it for you. And if you don't know what a turnover is, it's when somebody vacates your unit, when your resident vacates it, and you want to get somebody else in. Sam does it on time for less. That's on time for less. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Sam because we're going to talk real estate 101, 102, and everything.
Well, thank you, Mark, for that introduction, man. Yes, we are the best for less, pretty much.
I love it. I love it.
Mark, we recorded, I want to say maybe about a month ago, and there was so many questions, and you were bringing so much value into it, and we didn't have enough time. And I want to thank you for the opportunity of having me here at your studio. Beautiful.
Thank you for my Chevelle.
Of course.
Next to my bed.
Yes. His Chevelle. Very first car. Mark, real estate. How do you see the market, obviously, down here? You know, we're here in Miami. Things are, we got new president coming into the office now. How do you see the market here? Real estate.
So I'm seeing, and then let's take this from a standpoint of, if you look at South Florida, Dade County, Broward and Palm Beach County, take a tube of toothpaste, and we have the ocean on one side and the Everglades on another side. So everything is going to progress north, and it's become so dense in Dade and Broward and Palm Beach County, it's going to keep on moving up the state. But what we've had here is we've had substantial growth, and we're also having a slowdown in absorption on the rental side. We're also having an escalation in deals that are staying on the market longer. So that means prices will adjust. It hasn't happened dramatically yet, especially on Miami Beach, but here in the downtown space, we're seeing actual deals. We're seeing deals all the way up 95, and we're starting to see that inventory jump, and it has jumped, and it's on the market a lot longer. But what we haven't actually seen is we haven't seen the $3 trillion of toxic debt that is in the banking industry today, right now.
When you're referring, are you referring to multifamily or also single?
I'm referring to across the board.
Across the board.
Yep.
Across the board.
So the crisis that happened, the great financial crisis in 2008, happened because debt was cheap, you were unqualified, and you typically could buy a property with nothing, okay? But you could use bank financing at higher rates. You could get a first mortgage, you could get a piggyback, you could get a ninja, no income, no credit, no nothing, okay? And they had all these hypothecated loan programs. And what happened is all the big broker dealers, that's where all the mortgages go, okay? They took them out into the marketplace. They would rate them, and then they would slice them up in what's called tranches. Mm-hmm. And typical mortgage-backed securities, there's two types. CMBS, which stands for commercial mortgage-backed securities, or RMBS, which stands for residential mortgage-backed securities. So it's 1 to 4, and then 5 becomes commercial. They did this, and they made money so easy. And people got greedy. So you think about this, and I'm going to go a little bit off on a tangent. A bartender owned 3 properties. A stripper owned 3 properties, okay? And think about the real estate developers that got into the market, or new real estate developers who got in, and the money was easy. They bought a deal. They refinanced it. They came up with nothing. They made some money. They did it again and again and again. And what they forgot was real estate is simple and it's basic. If you find out how to move the income and you do it strategically with as little as possible, and that property is then stabilized, and then you take that equity at the proper levels and you go on to the next property. And you have one appreciating like this, having cash flow, having losses, because that's why real estate's so great, and then you take and you buy another one. Then you have 2. Then from 2 it becomes 4. From 4, it becomes 8.
I'm
That's
glad-
how you grow a portfolio.
And
the right way.
What do you say to those that own 20, 30, maybe 40 single families mixed in with duplex, triplex, fourplex? What do you say to them if they say, how can they transition to a big multifamily, to a 200 unit, 100 unit, 300 unit? They already have the portfolio. How would you be able to guide them to get to one property that has all those doors?
So real estate is all networking. And if you're out there doing deals, you're eventually going to run into a commercial broker. And you're going to have to learn how to analyze the deal. But guess what? There's no difference between owning 1 unit and owning 100. The only difference when you own 100 units, you scale faster and it's more sustainable. Because when you own 1 unit and it's vacant, you have 100% vacancy. When you own 100 units and you have 15 vacant, it's 85% occupied. It's 15% vacant. So that gives you that ability to create predictable, sustainable cash flow. With that, you create predictable, stable appreciation. And then if you layer in cost segmentation, you'll be able to create a greater tax loss and pass that on and shelter all your income. So today, people are not teaching that, and that's something we're trying to do here at Shapiro Capital, and we've had success teaching people how to buy a 1 to 4, and we have now started to have success teaching people how to buy larger scale. We've got 2 deals in the hopper, a 10 and a 12, and we have actually a third one that is out, a non-binding LOI. It's 202 units. And I've been off and on with the broker and my mentee, and we've been working through that. Actually, I just worked on structuring a deal in Houston in the Montrose area, which is a funky little area, kind of like the West Village used to be. And I love that area. And we...
How do you, I'm sorry to cut you off, Mark.
Yeah.
How do you find where to buy? Is it, because there's obviously some kind of research that has to be done to know that if it's a good area, if it's a good market. Because let's say, for example, West Coast here in Florida, you have a lot of land out there. Houses are a lot cheaper. Talking about Naples, Fort Myers, Ocala, right? But it's not a renter's market. Because people are moving from Miami to that side of town to buy. So see, those are things that some people would end up making the mistake of purchasing, thinking that they're going to rent and is going to cash flow.
So you have to truly be careful. And with real estate, there's one predominant feature. It's data. And data is analytical. And numbers do not lie. But real estate agents lie. Because all they want is to make a sale. Now, a good real estate agent will be able to be your agent for years. Or a good commercial broker, you'll be with them for years. What's happening in markets like Fort Myers, because it's become very saturated, that is a market where the barrier to entry, price-wise, is high, and then the rent cost, rent per square foot, is lower. What we like to teach is the inverse of that, the anomaly. We want you to be in a market where the barrier of entry is low and the rent price per square foot is high. So that is why we go to markets that like St. Louis, Missouri, or Lubbock, Texas, or Birmingham, Alabama, or Montgomery, Alabama, or Jacksonville, or Ohio. We go to Columbus, Dayton, Akron, Cleveland, Detroit, Michigan. There's markets all over.
Detroit, yeah.
Detroit, where you can buy 2s, 3s, and 4s for sub $100K, and then you can turn them around.
But you know what it takes too? It takes risk. The people that you have to tell, I'm pretty sure you do, explain to them, hey, this is a risk, and you have to be a risk taker.
Yep.
The numbers can make all sense, but you really have to have the courage to really get into the real estate game and be patient, because they think that they're going to get rich quick, and obviously You don't get rich quick, but you get rich for sure. When you try to, how is it that you teach your mentees to look at the data? Because let's say, for example, you mentioned Detroit. Detroit, obviously, you were able to buy properties, I think like for $1, $2. It was like something ridiculous.
To be, yeah.
It was something
they were blighted.
So how is it that you capitalize or see the vision of where it's going? Same with Phoenix, Arizona. Before, Phoenix, Arizona was very affordable. You were able to get in right before prices. Right. How is it? What are the certain things that you look for to capitalize and jump ahead of everybody else?
So we look at markets that we believe are in transition. And if you're in a transitionary market, you have to be extremely cautious when you're underwriting it. But the data is going to show you that the transition is going this way versus going that way. All right? So St. Louis, Missouri. Here's why we love St. Louis, Missouri. It's probably one of the better Section 8 markets for Section 8 voucher. Okay? And if anyone doesn't know what a Section 8 voucher is, it's a voucher that runs to the resident, and then the resident comes and gives it to you, and they pay the rent. Either Section 8 pays there's an 80%, 90, or 100% voucher. And people have a stigma. Oh, Section 8's bad. These are bad people. Question. They're not. They're typically, and I hope I'm not offending anybody, they're single moms.
Oh, yeah, too.
That may have, they may have a job, they're a medical assistant, they are a paralegal, and they just can't make enough to give their family this lifestyle. They go to Section 8, they're 100% vetted by Section 8, and then they get in the program. And what we do is we have a relationship with Section 8, and as soon as we have a property that's ready, they just send a flood of Section 8 vouchers. And for the deal that one of our students did in St. Louis, it was 1,000 square feet, 2-1. She paid 34. She put in 35. Just refinanced it for 106. Praised at 150.
And you teach,
and she did that 90 days
and
or
you
less.
teach how to
everything. No experience, no credit, and less than zero capital. So when we went there to St. Louis, we realized that there was an abundance of Section 8 vouchers, and then there were markets, pockets, sub-markets that were actually really good. So now we have closed our third deal in St. Louis, a single and 2 fourplexes, and the second fourplex was just closed by Lydia Walker, who was the one who bought that first property. And she added roughly, it's insane, she paid $360. She's now going to level up the 3 empty units with Section 8 vouchers, and then she's going to buy out the other unit with cash for keys. It's a program that we teach people. Just walk up to them and say, look, let me give you the money so you can go to another place, and put the 4th Section 8 voucher in. The property she paid $360 for has an NOI of $51,000, giving her a finished value of $880. I told her we adjust it down to $600. Her new mortgage on a DSR loan will be $600. It'll still have about $1,500 in cash flow. And she's on to the next one, but she has a fresh $240 on what she did.
Look at that.
Plus her equity back. She put down 30%.
Yeah, Section 8, people have that it has that stigmatism. And in our reality, the tenants that are in the program, they want to make sure they keep that voucher, and they're going to take care of the property.
They're not going to lose that voucher, because if they lose it,
they have no place to go.
It's gone.
Correct.
It's gone.
There's that bad stigmatism about it, You mentioned a very important word, and it was your due diligence, making sure that the properties actually cash flow, running the numbers correctly.
Yep.
That's very important. In the beginning, if people try to do it on their own, they might get lucky and they'll be successful. But the majority of people, fail, and that's when they want to stay away from owning properties. It seems like you have a very good system in place, especially with the context that you have with the Section A. I like the fact that the way you explained how she had the property and you already cashed for keys, and you're basically growing the portfolio. I find that so cool. You know, there's so many ways you could.
Real estate is all common sense. Okay, real estate is all knowledge based on doing. So after doing it for 4 decades plus and making numerous mistakes, I know the majority of the mistakes that you want to not make. So when you underwrite a deal, you're never Pollyannic on underwriting a deal or over enthusiastic. You need to use real numbers, and you need to use real expenses, and you need to verify everything. Don't trust whatever the agent is giving you. Verify it all on your own, and then come back once it's underwritten and go and say, look, I want to make this offer. And it's a step-by-step process. So when somebody joins our program, the first thing they have to do is they get a 90-day acceleration plan on how to get them into their first property. Okay? And that comes from our advisors that all went through my course. Everybody that works here, except the social guys, all have been part of the course and have gone through the course.
I'm sorry, Mark, to cut you off again. When you're teaching them to buy these properties in other states that they don't live in, do you also give them the resources and the guidance on how to service the property? Yeah, manage it.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys look for local?
So we teach things 2 ways. We teach things to manage it remotely using software and writing all kinds of teeth into the lease, or we get a local property manager. You could get them right off a thumbtack, okay, and then negotiate the very best deal, and then you have somebody there that's going to help you.
It's very hard sometimes. You know, people get worried when they want to hire a property management company, because there's property management companies that obviously the tenant will put in either a work order, will phone call, or however the system might be in place, and never respond. And then the tenant, there's no feedback, and you don't know what's going on. The property management company is how can you, or how is it you teach or educate is the word, the mentees in the program to ask certain questions, or do you go into detail into that aspect? Because obviously the maintenance side of it is very important, and having somebody that's overseeing your property.
So we teach them what's most important about the PM side of the business. But what we like to do is we advise them to get a software right on their phone that they can set up the ACH payment right into their operating account for the property, and the resident can use that software to make a complaint, a work order, a service order, and they're going to get notification just like the property manager is, and it's going to be followed up. Is it 24 hours? Is it 48 hours? Has somebody responded? So what we do with our assets is we have what's called a 24-hour promise, and if we don't get to your issue, we give you a $25 voucher for the following month.
Yeah, that's very common, especially in the big multifamily.
Yeah.
It's very common. You have 24 hours to resolve the work order issue. And it also attracts people as well. But then you have also those tenants that try to put a lot of work, like instead of putting everything on one work order, they'll separate it into 4 or 5 different work orders to try to play the system.
Yeah, to try to get $100 off.
Yeah, they try to play the system.
Yeah.
You mentioned, in most of the content that you started wholesaling, flipping, right?
Yeah.
You obviously teach that, and is it? People think that it's very simple, you know. Do you recommend just cold calling or actually putting, you know, either foot soldiers or yourself walking and knocking on doors, presenting yourself, and making the offer there in person?
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend for someone that wants to get into wholesaling?
So we have our own wholesaling program, and we teach it, and it's called ethical wholesaling, because the wholesaling business is a little slimy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who's a big residential roofer in Dallas, and his name is Nick Roper, okay? And he's a door knocker. And the guy does $125 million a year in roofs. But he still goes out twice a week and knocks on doors. And then he hangs a door, I forget what they're called. Door hanger, okay? And it's simple, and it's old-fashioned, and it works. Whatever works for you in the wholesaling space to get a lead, we like to push our guys to get uncomfortable doing that. And right now, it looks like Andreas is doing about 5 or 6 deals on a weekly basis. So he's crushing it on the wholesaling side. So there's a need for this and a substantial market for it. Now, what do you need for wholesaling? You do need some training. You do need to understand how to negotiate an assignment. You do need to know how to paper a transaction and even do a memorandum of understanding and put it on the land record so you don't get screwed. And then you need to be able to analyze the property. Do I have a pocket buyer for it, or do I put it out on MLS and list it, and that's a novation? So there's multiple ways to do it, but one thing with wholesaling, you can get started with $1,000.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So think about that. You don't have any real estate. You learn wholesaling. At the same time, you're going to be learning about real estate. And you get a property under contract, and you sell it for a $10,000 fee. You just made $10,000 by just using $1,000 of your own capital. You just 10x'd. So I think Grant Cardone is the #1 wholesaler because he's the 10x man. So how you doing there, Grant?
Now that you mentioned it, my next question was, you know, he obviously talks about single families. No, because you know, once they move out, you only have 100% of it is gone, but you have a different view. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you dive a little bit into it and how and explain that, you know, you could still obviously start with one and scale to that. Yep. You don't have to start with the 12 or 16 unit right away. Right. You know? Right. Explain a little bit into that.
So we like somebody to go through a transaction. We like somebody to go through identifying a market, negotiating a contract, negotiating with a general contractor for the rehab, closing it, and then executing it, and then refinancing it. We don't care whether you are financially well off or not. We want to show you how to do it the old-fashioned way. And whether you do 1 unit or, as I said, 100 units, it's still the same process. If you're buying a 100-unit deal, you have to find it. You have to put it under LOI, convert it to a contract. You have to put up a deposit. You have to figure out how you're going to add value to it. Then you actually have to close it and do that. It's no different than buying a single-family house. So what we want to show people is the simplicity of how to do it. So we do it with a single or a duplex or a threeplex or a fourplex because it's easier to get that maximum leverage for a new buyer from FHA, 96.5%, and get them to push value very quickly.
But obviously, those programs have to make sense, and that's why I would assume that you study that market, because obviously here in South Florida, an FHA loan, you know, the property won't cash flow because the prices down here are very, very high.
Well, you can go to Allapattah, you can go to Little River, you can find a fourplex for $1 million. You can find a fourplex for $800,000-900,000. So you can definitely make it cash flow.
That's where the Section 8 comes in.
Right. right? And we use the Section 8, and then we like to teach another technique, which is called rent to own. So what you're doing is you're socially changing someone's life, okay? You're helping them have a place for their family. Everybody needs a roof. Everybody needs to be able to call something their own home, okay? What we do is we teach them what rent to own is, where the resident can sign an option agreement to buy the house after making 60 consecutive payments, and we will sell you the property. This is my program at 90 cents on the dollar. So they can then buy the property, have built-in equity, and go out and get a loan. And that is the difference maker, because the goal here is not only to teach real estate, it's to teach real estate that changes lives. That's the goal.
Yeah, because you're that's the American dream, right? Is to own.
Everybody deserves a house. Everybody deserves a roof over their head. Everybody deserves to have some level of peace of mind.
Yeah, yeah, that's where it's at. That's why, because I was always just very
cool sneakers.
Oh, thanks.
The pants.
Thanks. I was always very you hear all these people, you could buy with little down, but how would it cash flow? And then I never put into sense the Section 8 program.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
when Lydia bought her single family, which was 1,000 square feet, her initial cash flow before she refinanced was $1,080. Now it still has cash flow, and now she has more cash flow from the new deal. So if you do it right, you can scale. Now you asked me, the guy that has 20 single family houses or duplexes. Guys, if you're that guy, congratulations, and you should be damn proud of yourself, because there is no shame when most people can't even get out of their own way and buy a condominium, because they're so busy trying to be something they're not. To educate so people can then assimilate and ascend.
But there has to be a way that person that owns those 20 could transition.
Well, they have to actually get
'cause
somebody that's going to help them transition a little quicker.
It'll be a lot easier to manage just one property than to
True.
manage.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example, okay? I don't have any money on me, but if I took a $100 bill and I threw it on the floor, okay, and then I took 20 quarters, I threw them on the floor, all right? Look at the 20 quarters as your scattered single-family houses. Look at the $100 bill as one apartment community. It's much easier. But we all have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You cannot be Donald Trump or George Perez or some of the biggest developers in the world day one. You have to learn how to change a wax ring on a toilet. You have to learn how to sweat a pipe. You have to learn how to change a wall switch and not get zapped. Okay?
Of course.
You need to learn this stuff. You know what it is, the process of turning over a unit. People are like, oh, you paint it. I'm like, you clean it out first. Then you do your material list. All right? Then you do the maintenance. Then you paint it. If it's a spray job, tape it, paint it. Then you finish it and clean it and deliver it. So once you start doing it, it's a simple process. It becomes second nature.
Yeah, you get into the routine of it.
Right.
And it just ends up being, like you said, second nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, we'll see. There's definitely a lot of value. I'm intrigued with this whole Section 8 because I was one of those people. That's why I keep tapping back into the Section 8. I was one of the people that would stay away from it. Why? Why? I was misinformed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Misinformed. And the more videos I watch of you, it's like, man, there's something with this whole Section 8 program. He's like pitching in the sense that this is the way to eventually.
It's really hard to learn Section 8, okay? I mean, it takes a lot of time, really a lot of time. I think our video is 15 minutes. But you could sign on for one of these very pricey Section 8 courses like Tom Cruise. Okay? And he's going to charge you a lot of money to teach you what we teach you in 15 minutes. It's simple. And once you master it, boom, it clicks. Once you master what you're doing, it clicks. And then you can level up and you can elevate.
Have you had a lot of experienced people or that may not have the experience that you have, but reach out to you for your guidance, for your consultation? You know, hey, Mark, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about, would you be able to help me out? Do you offer that kind of service as well?
So we have 3 programs. We have our $2,997 program, which is called the Premium Protege Program. And that program, you are on the phone with me on Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour each day, each week. So it's an hour on Tuesday, it's an hour on Thursday. I'm on answering deal questions, structuring deals, showing people how to underwrite, solving problems. Okay. Within the week or within the month, we do a collection of 25 different calls. That's 25 different calls with advisors on how to level up. Nobody does that. Now, we do teach multifamily, and that's a $15,000 price, and we in multifamily, and we have a few more that started and have gone on to buy deals, okay, in the 1 to 4 space, and they've decided that's where they want to stay. But they came into the program. And we have a super one-on-one program that I haven't allowed somebody to take it for $40K because it requires a tremendous amount of my time and my effort, and I'm waiting for the right person. I did have somebody 2 days ago that I interviewed. I'm interviewing you for the right to pay me for me to teach you. And
because your time is valuable. And you want to make sure that
I didn't know my time was valuable until I started doing this, okay? Because I would help anybody or, because I love this business. I'm passionate about it. And this guy's a dentist. He's in Austin. He has 4 practices. He has some capital, a couple $1 million to deploy. But he had an unrealistic goal. And I told him it's unrealistic to have $1 million in cash flow in 60 months. I said, that would be difficult. I said, I cannot tell you I can do that for you. But I really wish you the best. I spent 45 minutes on the phone with him. Very nice guy. And I hope he finds what he's looking for. But I want somebody that actually is going to be realistic. Now, it doesn't mean we couldn't find a property, a couple hundred units, get the deal done, change out the electrical for solar replacement, cut the payroll, cut the insurance with a mod rehab, okay, and reduce the expenses, and that falls to your bottom line, and get the NOI, because we just put in an offer in our community, multifamily, on 202 units in Houston, and the re-underwritten property has about $364,000 a month in cash flow. And that's only at a 90% occupancy rate. That's economic occupancy. That's what you collect. Mm-hmm. Physical is whatever people are living there. So I've been on the phone a couple times back and forth with the broker, and the broker's trying to facilitate a deal. Now, I love Houston because we used to have an office there when we had 10,000 units in the state of Texas. Mm. And it's in the Galleria. It's a great property. It's got tremendous upside. But his unique feature is he is in the solar business, and he can get rid of all of the electrical and put solar on the roofs, solar on the carports, and make more money from it. So, and he originally, this funny story, I turned down for the multifamily protege partnership because it's really a partnership.
That was my question.
And it was, I got on the phone with him, his partner, and this woman, her name was something, I don't remember. And I can't even explain how I felt disconnected to them. So he offered us to sign up, but he wanted a 2-for-1, and we said to him no. Then he offered us to pay him $25,000 to train the three of them, and we said no. Okay, I said no.
Yeah.
And I told him we don't need your money. Well, he stayed in contact with us, and he kept on calling like every 2 weeks.
He was
every
intrigued.
2 weeks, and he was the guy that I found to be more charming and more humble than his partner. His partner was in the turnover business, and he was freaking arrogant.
Really?
Yeah, and she was absolutely Looney Tunes, this girl, and he left them. And finally, he convinced me to let him in the program. And actually, it was Rob who talked me into it, the COO. And this guy is a superstar in the community.
Two questions that you mentioned. There's a lot of doctors, dentists, that they own their own practice, but at the end of the day, they do want to get into the real estate game.
Yep.
Because they want that cash flow. Because after they're done with their practice, they may sell it, but they still need that cash flow. You have a lot of mentees like that as well?
I have 2 doctors currently, and I have one is a chiropractor. So he's not a doctor.
Yeah,
so So we do, and our group is probably 40 on multi, but as I said, 31 of them are active. We actually gave to Lydia Walker a free gift of the $15,000 program because we offered her a job, and she said, no, I'm a full-time real estate investor. I want to start buying large-scale multi. She bought this 4. Now she's actually has another 4 she's going to buy right in St. Louis. So she'll have 9 units, and she started this on June 20th.
Yeah.
And her goal is to have $10,000 a month in cash flow by February of 2026. And she's going to come close. She's certainly going to come close. But the odd coincidence is my first investor was a dentist. And I actually have his last name, my father. So,
Yeah, I remember that
my
story.
father and my uncles made most of their wealth from my grandfather's real estate and from the real estate that we invested in. So, yeah.
In your top program, you actually partner up as well. Like let's say for example, I may not have all the capital, or I have the turn service.
We do.
You know, would you consider?
If the deal underwrites in our community, we do that, but it's a very specific underwriting, and Andreas is the one who handles that. But before I got in here, one of the partners in multifamily, I was helping him negotiate a deal in Montrose, a 16-unit. Montrose is the funky area of Houston. It's very cool, very artsy, very activated like Wynwood. And the guy turned down. He wanted $1.6 million. The seller had paid $1.6 million, and we offered $1 million. He moved up to $1.2 million, and they came back and said, we have an all-cash offer at $1.3 million. And I said, find out what the debt is. So the guy has debt through 2028 at 4%, $1.1 million on the deal because I knew how much it was because he paid $1.6 million. And we went back to him and said, look, we'll buy it for $1.45 million. Now, I'm not the buyer, but that's what Michael, my client, my mentee, will buy it for $1.45 million. We'll assume your mortgage in a wrap, which means you take the mortgage over, the 4%er, and you're going to run coterminous another mortgage for $200,000 as a second, a soft second, so we don't have to get approval. And all my client is going to come up with $150,000. And then he's going to take the $50,000 that he has for rehab and clean up the units. And we're going to keep you in the deal with a 20% carried interest. And they're papering the deal today.
Look at that. And you help like that.
I'm on the phone.
Oh man, that's come on. That's where the value's at right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a no-brainer.
That's why I'm always
it's a no-brainer.
That's why I'm always so anxious, because I know I have a bunch of calls that I got to get to today, because today's Friday. It's Shabbos. So my phone's going to go off about 5:30. But I love what I do, okay? It has become my passion. And if you look at our wall, it says magnum opus. Look up what magnum opus means. What does magnum opus mean, Adrian?
Adrian, I think you should have known this by now, Adrian.
Adrian was more excited about the race car driver, okay? What?
It means a large and important art, music, or literature, especially one regarded as the most important work of an artist or writer.
So as a real estate developer, you're an artist. You're an artist in creating value. You're an artist in reading people. You're an artist in negotiating. You're an artist in feeling visceral about something. And calling that shot like that, you have to be able to meet somebody within 2 minutes, figure out who they are.
Correct. Read.
Okay? And here's the biggest thing. As a man, you're never going to figure that out on a chick. Unless she's got the big fake tits, okay? And she's looking for papacito.
That's it.
Okay?
That's it.
So, or papi.
Exactly. Or
Call me papi.
That's it.
So, yeah.
That's it. You know, when you underwrite these big deals, Mark.
They underwrite just like
really
the small deals. Think about it like this, okay? You take the gross income, collect 90% of it. That's your gross adjusted income.
But how do you know that gross income is accurate?
You verify it. You get a T3, which is a trailing 3 months, okay? And then you verify it. How do you do that? When you're under contract, you do what's called a lease audit, and then you do a physical walk of each unit.
Correct.
And do a physical verification of the resident.
So, question.
Verify everything.
So basically, the person that's already putting the property on the market already knows with their trailing 3, they know where to sell the property at.
They do. But what if their trailing 12 sucks and they're trying to sell it on a trailing 3? You're going to adjust the price range. You're going to adjust what your entry cap is going to be, the capitalization that you're looking for. And you're going to know what the cap rate is in that market. Also, because of the last decade and a half, we had all these social media syndicators. They overpaid for everything.
Yes, they did.
Then they went out and used bridge debt. Then it reset, and there were 14 rate hikes.
Yep.
So rates went from here to here, and guess what? You can't borrow that much when it's up here. So all of a sudden, the equity constricts, and it's boom, here are the keys, Mr. Lender. Here we're in default. Here's what's going on, and that's what's happening.
No, that's exactly what's happening.
Yep. So
or you start asking for more money from your investors.
I'll give you a perfect example. One of my guys in multifamily sends me a text. Guy lives in Fort Lauderdale. Okay. He said, Mark, I found a property. It's in Coral Gables. Okay.
Big.
Small property. Single family.
Okay.
Okay. In a nice part of the Gables, not far from Miracle Mile.
Okay.
For $500,000.
Yeah, that's
my first question is, what's wrong with
it? Yeah, exactly. That's unheard of.
Okay. He said, well, it's an estate sale. I said, okay. You know, estate sales are timely and they're difficult. He goes, it's my cousin. And all my cousin wants is $500,000 for his mom's house. And he wants me to clean it out. I said, have you submitted a contract? He goes, no, I wanted your opinion. I said, okay, do a quick search, go on PropStream, because all of our guys have PropStream, okay? We do business with them. We recommend them. And I said, give me exit comps. Do a quick CMA, which is comparative market analysis, okay? The comps came back, if we were to renovate it with $100K, at between $1.1 million and $1.3 million. I said, go write an offer, get it under contract, and we'll buy it with you. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, the deal makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
The deal makes sense.
And all he wants to do is flip it. Wants to clean it up and flip it. He doesn't want to keep it.
Doesn't want to keep it?
No, with Michael,
Well, yeah,
he's
but
a
that's-
sophisticated guy. He's a home builder. He's building $3-4 million homes in Hollywood. Okay, so that's his play. But then he doesn't know what to do with the money. So he wants to learn the apartment business because he needs the losses.
And the cash flow too, though.
So, and he's like, when I call him, he's like, "Oh, thank you." I'm like, "What do you mean? You paid me $15,000, bro. Okay, my phone's just off for Shabbat. That's it. I work."
These big deals, because obviously I'm in the space, and I enjoy these big properties. I love walking the big properties and seeing the potential of all these big properties. And these are all A. These are all A buildings. They're it's intriguing to me. Some B, you know. I know that we spoke last podcast. C to B is your niche because you like to do a slight little rehab, something small.
We want to add value. We want to force appreciation, but we're definitely staying away from the solid C's, and we're looking more at the C pluses, like this deal that we bought from the remnants of the Silicon Valley Bank, and the bank that took them over was First Citizens Bank here. And that deal, we bought at 40 cents on the dollar. And that is our first foray into Shapiro Capital putting money together from its investor group to buy the deal. And what's great about it is on a T3, it's an 11%.
Wow.
11% cap on a T3. Rents haven't been touched for 2 years. And the bank has been playing around with the owners because they didn't want to take the liability of the property. So the bank has been the receiver, and they paid 15 for it, and they put 3.8 into it, and we're paying 8. Our closing is Wednesday.
You also mentioned that.
Oh, and did I mention the bank financed the deal 100%? There you go. That's leverage.
How?
That's power.
But how?
Track record.
See, because you hear these stories and it's like, how? How is it? Is it true or is it BS?
Bro, we have 3 more deals behind it. We're already under contract for the second one, and we're trying to work a deal on a portfolio. It's either going to be 2 or 3 assets, probably 800 units. All from the same lender. You just have to close. You have to perform. You got to be a closer.
Yeah, that's to me is astonishing. When it comes to, I wanted to touch. I know we were talking about the deal, but they sell these properties. They put the price on the property. How do you? Obviously, they know you're trading 12s. They already know the price to sell. And do they also help you on your exit strategy if you decide to exit when you buy? Big multifamily.
Who?
The seller. Will the seller help you as the buyer? In the sense,
No.
they won't.
Only unless the seller is under stress. Only unless the seller is under distress. And that's the only types of deals that we buy. We won't pay retail. Philosophically, it's never going to happen. Okay? So why we stay out of the A market, although we lost an A deal in the Med District in Houston because it was too big for us to try to raise the capital going into it. But it was a magnificent deal. 373 units called Latitude, built in 2020. MedStar owned it. MedStar is owned by Starwood, and they were into it for $160 million, and we were paying $120.
Good deal.
But MedStar had to write a check for $40, and the deal fell apart because we asked for a long due diligence and a long close, 120 days. Now we were going to get the money institutionally, but they didn't want to give it to us. They wanted 30. And they did eventually sell it for $116 million. And it's a true condo conversion. Gorgeous asset.
Oh, it's a condo conversion.
Yeah. Right now, it's a condo. And the average rental income for the resident is $175,000 That's what the average rental income for a resident in that building. It's class AAA.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Mark, have you developed multifamily before?
Sure.
What do you think about that workforce program?
It's a program. It works. I think depends on what market you want to be in. It depends on what you want to do. But I will tell you, there's a revolutionary system. I don't want to talk too much about it. They just built a deal in, I want to say it's either in Dania Beach or Pompano. It's 96 units. It was done with take-o blocks, and we're supposed to schedule a walkthrough of the facility next week. So I'd like to remind you to get RX information from Gabriella so we can schedule a walkthrough either Wednesday, hopefully Wednesday of next week, and hopefully our investor Butch would love to come and do it with us. So Tanner's telling me we got to wrap.
Yeah, of
So-
course. I want to appreciate.
No, but I'm gonna run out of time, bro.
I want to just.
You guys got 10-15 minutes.
I want
No,
to
we don't.
appreciate. No, we're
You-
good. We're
you-
good.
You don't have to be home, but I do.
Yeah. I just want to take the time and thank you. You came onto my podcast and it was.
Well, you just took over my podcast, and you did a great job. So
Oh.
I'm learning how to interview from you.
I'm just so intrigued. The same way you love real estate, I love real estate. And I'm in the business. And, I see the deals come and I see the way the property management company runs it and the way they work with us. And it's really, you have to work as a team to make the actual property, cash flow and presentable. So I just want to thank you, Mark,
No, thank you.
to having me here in this lovely, pretty cool spot that you
We're
have.
trying.
No, it's pretty dope. It's pretty cool. And yeah, guys, if you definitely want to invest first time, I would definitely, send Mark a DM and get into the school program,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
Especially
you
the
for
Section
that.
8. The Section 8 is what has me so intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
It's
If people need your services, where would they find you?
at the Works Rent Ready service. Yeah, we
Okay.
provide one-stop shop
And what's your handles on
at the Works.
at the Works?
Yeah, at the Works
Okay.
Rent Ready service.
Okay.
At the Works cleaning.
Nice.
And yeah,
All right.
Mark,
Well,
thank you. No, Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. God bless.